Hello and welcome back. Appointment with Death. I know that this title doesn't sound very good, very appealing, but unfortunately each one of us is going to have one, either you like it or not. I am going to present to you four different cases. I am going to show you four small short clips from different videos. I'm going to leave the link in the description box so you can watch the whole thing yourself. The process of dying, the whole concept of death, is a very vast subject. To cover everything, every aspect of that, and to dispel all the superstition, it would take many hours. So in this episode, I am only going to address some of it. I will, in 2023, dedicate a whole playlist especially to that, because it's time to remove the superstition, to the fear of dying, this whole misunderstanding, misinformation, what that is. This is simply transition. Okay, so let's jump into the first case.
I didn't know that I had been a human being. I was just this pure conscious awareness. And I watched these tiny black particles came racing up to where my vision was and sort of surrounded my vision in this undulating little static cloud. I was completely detached from everything that was going on. I didn't have any earthly references at all. I didn't know what human was. I didn't know what people were. I didn't know I had been one. And I watched my daughter being born, floated around to the other side of the room, sort of released this resistance to staying. I started moving very quickly through it was like an undulating wall into this bright white flash of space, and then into the denser particles that I was, but very dense. And I sort of merged into that, and I was moving along very, very fast, cloud-like opening. And in the opening, there were these shadow beings, and there were adults, and there was a little boy in the front. I knew it was a little boy. It's, again, everything is through feeling. And I felt that it was a little boy, and I could feel that he needed my help. So, and beyond that, there were green rolling hills and trees dotting it, a blue sky, and that there was a rocky moss covered waterfall. And then to my right, there was this dense, dark evergreen forest. And I merged into this, and I was immediately one with all of it. It was me, I was it, and it was just incredibly beautiful and peaceful. And I could have stayed there eternally. And then I was flanked on both sides by these very tall, beige colored beings that were like sort of draped in beige, and they didn't have faces, and they communicated through feeling.
It started with me though with addiction. So I guess I'll pull it back where I had a lot of things happen as a child as far as like abuse, trauma, different types of abuses as well. So I think that's why, I went in the drug route, because it did help with me to numb any sort of pain. A year prior, my brother died too. So I know that was really the starting point of what kicked it off for me. Like that put the fuel on the fire of my pain. I did this with pills, and I was really sure that I was going to die. So I knew what I was doing was going to kill me. I just was not expecting to not be killed. Although I was killed, yes, of course, I wasn't expecting an NDE and then coming back. First thing that I really went through was almost like a review, I guess. We say like we get a review. It wasn't like a review like you're watching something, although it kind of was, but I was more like feeling what I was watching than watching it. But yet I was seeing like past lives, but also future stuff as well. So everything's kind of like connected out. So we experience this and then we have an emotional body, and that body comes to me like it's like a blanket. It either carries a lot of weight or not. So it was very clear that we're not just one body, we're multiple bodies that all come together at once. And we have to be able to work on each body to affect the other body. So it all comes together, although we need to be able to work on those bodies in order to lighten the load. From there, the room that was all bright started to light up and became like a holographic projection, and it was surrounding me. And from there, I got to see my future. So when people say like the future of future Earth, I'd say it's my future Earth, if you will. And I saw where I would live. I saw what I'd be doing. I saw the air, how fresh it was, how clean, everything seemed different. Like the world definitely was changed in a big way.
My name is M.K. McDaniel. My friends call me Kathy, and I am the author of a memoir, Misfit in Hell to Have an Expat. It describes my life before, during, and after a distressing near-death experience. I was a cradle Catholic. I have come to believe that I was misinformed. When I was 53 years old, I was asked by my best friend to please accompany him to Seattle because he had leukemia. This was around-the-clock duty. He would start bleeding from the nose in the middle of the night, and we'd have to take him over to the emergency room. He'd be in the hospital for a week, and then we'd bring him home. And then in November, he died. I was mentally and physically, emotionally and spiritually spent. There was nothing left. I went to a program, and I caught a terrible flu that was going around, very similar to COVID. That flu turned into pneumonia, which turned into ARDS. I went from being an independent person to being someone on a ventilator, put into a drug-induced coma for 3 weeks. But in a drug-induced coma, your spirit can wander. Well, I walked and walked and walked and walked and walked. Later, I learned that in eternity, there is no time. So this is why it seemed eternal that I was on that road. See, when I was down there, I never believed I was dead. I never felt dead, just confused. And the expression cold as hell is real. We were freezing. And oh yeah, the lights came up and they were way too bright. And there were all these people milling around. And I thought, oh no, the zombie people are back. But then one of them said, oh, Mom's awake. And what I learned was that God is all loving, all forgiving, and would never condemn anybody. Anything that I was taught about God sending people to purgatory or to hell is not true.
That was our last phone call. It was very ugly. I had no idea that would be the last time I ever heard his voice. And I lost my mind. I went down pretty far. I couldn't go back to the house for obvious reasons. Those who were still around recognized that once somebody gets to that point, stage 2 cervical cancer. Went in for a biopsy. Some things went wrong. They didn't know how badly they had gone wrong. The hospital discharged me despite my protest that I was bleeding profusely. I was sent home. Maybe this is my way out. Maybe God has provided me with a door out of this life. You know, every night for 29 months between my husband's suicide and my own awakened. And as I was awakened, I was catapulted out of my body. And I mean, dramatically. It was almost jarring. One of my next thoughts was, I'm dying. And then I thought, actually, you're not dying, you're dead. However, whatever you decide, if you decide to go back or you decide to go through that door, you go with all of God's mercy and love and care and blessings. There is not a wrong decision. And that was so.
As I have already mentioned in the opening statement, dying or the death, this is nothing more than a process of transition from one physical body to another and or in between. Each life form that we have, that we associate our life, we claim that this physical body, this is what life is. No, this is just a very short episode. Life is a little bit more than that. And that's where this whole misunderstanding is. In the near future, we are going to be faced with lots of deaths. And since we are living in an age where there is a lot of stress, anxiety, we have the environment is changing, the weather is changing, the magnetic field is changing, the poles are shifting. We are more exposed to the cosmic rays and so on. You already know from media that there is an increased rate of heart attacks and other diseases coming in. So that is not going to be something that you can just ignore and avoid. From those examples that I show you here, you can see that each person experienced that a little bit differently, but in each case they almost talk about the same thing, that there is this overwhelming feeling of peace, love, and they feel safe. There is no some kind of devilish moments, except for the lady that was in a coma. I will return to that episode sometimes later, because there is a lot of interesting stuff that she's saying that she does not understand yet, but the emotional, the sensation that she was having during that process, they have explanation, and there is a neuroscience behind this, and I will address that completely. Each one of us is going to experience the death process differently. Many of you that are aware of this micronova upcoming, you are trying to start prepping, have shelters, have food, have all kinds of devices. But the part of the mental prepping is kind of secondary. If you understand the concept of life, the mental state is more important than anything else. This is something that needs to be addressed first. And to do that, it's essential that we take certain steps to be mentally aware, be aware of what to expect, and develop a certain techniques or exercises to help us release the fear, release the tension, and be and let go, because when the time comes, you need to let go and just go. Personally, I am prepping mentally for what's coming over prepping physically, because when I am ready and prepared mentally, the other physical aspects, they will kind of fall in place. That does not mean that we should not do certain steps, we should not do certain things, but that is going to be addressed some other time. For me, I started with exercise number 1. I will leave you a link below, and then I am doing this open exercise from Monroe Institute, where I do that about 3 times a week. That is completely changing the state of my mind, and it has a lot of benefits coming from it. And the more I do that, the more my travels are more, I have more control in there. So that's my recommendation to you. If you like this material, please do like it. Please do subscribe if you want more of that stuff. Please check the notification bell so you will get information when new videos are coming up. I want to wish you all the best in 2023. Thank you for being with me here today, and hopefully I see you in 2023 in greater numbers. All right, so thank you and bye for now.